allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have anyone for open forum? Thank you.
Cannot hear you, Diane, sorry.
Excuse me?
Microphone, can't hear you.
Sorry, I didn't grow.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. We have minutes from June 11th. We have executive session minutes from June 11th. We have the May financial report. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
And actually, I would like to, and I apologize for not doing this right away, I'd like to pull the May financial report for discussion. May I have a motion to pull the May financial report?
I'll make that motion. Second, sorry.
Second.
All those in favor? And then if I could have a vote to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. For the May financial report, I really just wanted to call attention to it as the Finance Subcommittee did review that report in detail prior to our last school committee meeting. We didn't have it on this body's agenda that night, but we did discuss it at the Finance Subcommittee, and we had other folks there with us as well in attendance. I think the back and forth was good, and there were no outstanding issues from that report. So that was all I wanted to say, to call attention to the fact that we do have it in our package this evening. So may I have a motion to accept the May financial report?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, next we have Chairperson's remarks. Just as a reminder to all, the Attorney General's Open Government Summit is this coming Friday, July 26th at Roger Williams, and they will also have a virtual option available as well. Really good session, and I would recommend anyone who can make it to do so. And then next we have the Town Council Casino funding discussion that is expected to take place on July 31st. That announcement was made about a week ago, and I will go ahead and reconfirm that. And if for some reason it's not July 31st, I'll let you all know. And obviously, everyone is welcome to attend. We'll be presenting the list of capital requests that we had initially sent over in February of this year. Okay, and that's all I have. So for superintendent's updates, Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I gave you a document, had two bits of information on it. One is just sort of a staff, and I'd call your attention just to the staffing update now. I know we're going to talk about callbacks in the budget later on in the agenda, but just to show you that we did have some other vacancies as a result of retirements or people leaving the district that couldn't be filled by any people that were laid off. So just to keep you updated on where we are in filling those positions.
Do we have questions from anyone? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much. We'll now move to new business, consideration and vote to approve the food service contract for Chartwells. Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your packet, you have the standard
Oh, I do apologize, I skipped right over that.
Skip over?
That's not good.
I know, I have to get better glasses.
Yes.
So if it pleases the committee, I will backpedal a little bit to old business, FY25 budget discussion. So we did meet June 29th. We did take a number of votes and did adopt a budget for FY25 in the amount of $35,790,734. We did, in that meeting, vote to use our entire fund balance, which is a continuation of a practice that we have employed for the last few years to use one-time funds to support our operations. My estimates, and we have since been granted the additional $286,000 from the town council to use toward technology and the books that we had put in as a request from casino funds. So if you take the $286,000 and you take the use of fund balance, just as a, preemptive piece of discussion here, we're looking at a $2 million hole walking right into FY26. That's before we consider any contractual increases or anything. So we have our work cut out. We don't have any kind of in-depth discussion scheduled at this time, but I do think we will need to start talking about that much sooner than normal. It will definitely be before the actual budget season that this body needs to start really considering what our options are going to be. So I don't know if I did have actually one other question, and Dr. Sanchioni, on the callbacks list that you mentioned, I'm looking at it, you've got $1.2 million here. My understanding is that we had a little less than that available. And just for transparency, I just did meet with Dr. Sanchioni on this topic, because I do have, we are running so close to the margin this year that we really we don't have the room to afford any kind of errors, whether they be from our end or from the finance office's end. So to that end, we're going to talk about this. Dr. Sanchioni feels that we do have that capability to call back this $1.2 million as listed. And I'm going to recommend that we schedule a finance subcommittee meeting as soon as possible, Mrs. Polish, so that we can go through these callbacks and the budget in more detail. As for the rest of FY25, the only other question I have for Dr. Sanchioni is, when do you anticipate having a line item budget finalized?
The goal is before our August, 14th meeting?
14th is the next.
That's our goal. And, we're working with an interim right now, and we're onboarding a lot of information. And as you know, we're a little short-handed in the office. So, but I talked to Mr. Hyde today, and he's going to try to make that his goal too. So we're shooting for August 14th.
Okay. I will open the floor to any other committee members.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yep.
So I had a similar question. So the last time we met, we approved a budget, position reductions, and to get to those position reductions, we had $1,076,835 in callbacks, and I'm seeing $1,214,901. So I do think it's really important, not just for the finance subcommittee, but for the whole committee to understand what changed between that budget and now that allowed us to call back $138,000 more. I just want to make sure that we understand what changed, because without understanding that, $138,000 more in callbacks would place us in a deficit spending situation. And I understand you're saying that Dr. Sanchioni is saying that's not true, but I think it's incumbent upon the whole committee to understand why that is. So I would hope at our next meeting that we get some further understanding of why we were able to call back $138,000 more than what we saw when we budgeted. And I understand that obviously something changed, but I think it's incumbent upon all of us to understand what it is.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the first logical step is, for those of us who are more numbers people, to get together, have the finance subcommittee meeting, meet with Dr. Sanchioni and his staff, line by line, to understand what the difference is here, and come to a conclusion that works. Certainly, the entire committee would be briefed after that meeting of what we came out with. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Ms. Farnworth, if I may. I have to say I am still confused by the documents themselves. In fact, even just the presentation of them. So we have one email from the 18th that has callbacks in it. And it doesn't help that it's not actually even oriented in a proper fashion, so I have to download it and then rearrange it. So that's one document, and that doesn't really tell us,
That didn't have numbers tied to it. You are correct.
right, so can I just ignore that?
Yep.
Okay. Then we're at least half the way there.
And
This-
Dr. Sanchioni did come out with a new version.
He did?
Did it come
Sent
to,
it today, it's the third attachment.
came in today?
Right, okay, so then.
I
so
think that's why we
the-
need more time to look at it.
It's actually a spreadsheet, and it actually,
Look at the second tab.
no, I know, it opens
Okay.
up in 2022, 2023, which doesn't help. And then we go to 2023, 2024, and at the top, right, and then there's a second tab. If you look at the bottom, you can tab to the next thing, and it just kind of, so I guess I just want the clarity of who did we lay off, or what positions were laid off, and what positions were then called back without regard to the name. And again, I keep on toggling back and forth between these different fields that are. and I
Dr. Larkin,
always-
if I
Yep.
may, I have a hard copy that's coming around to you, and in the pages you're about to receive, if you turn to page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you may recall that, during the entire budget process, we did a lot of different things, and there was 3 different times we came to you and asked you to vote layoffs. And on that sheet that I'm referring to, you have 33 names and a total of personnel cuts of 3.2 million. I'll use round numbers. And the positions we call back are now highlighted in yellow,
Okay,
but they're not,
Was this in our packet?
no,
I sent it to you today.
Yeah, it was in today's packet,
Today's
attachment number
mail.
3.
What time did that?
I don't think so.
It is, and you have to click on the
24.
He's right.
23, 24.
So this sheet, yes, this sheet, no. So page 1,
Oh, yeah, not that sheet.
this was not today, and that, I guess this is the one I'm kind of referring to that I can, so this is where the bottom part has $1.2 million in positions called back. To Mrs. Palish's point, that's actually more than we approved. And then the top are, what is that?
What are you looking at?
I am looking at
Oh, the
hiring
top-
doc
So you-
2425.
I had a request from the school committee to show you all new positions, all new hires. And as I was explaining in the open session, or the consent agenda, the top is just positions we have vacant that we're filling. Doesn't mean, it has nothing to do with the budget. Just there are positions that are vacant because of resignations or other reasons,
So-
and we couldn't fill them with people who are laid off. So I'm showing you here that we're filling them through the typical process of hiring.
Okay, that was not readily apparent, and it may have been helpful to have that glossed a little bit. I'm concerned that we have a interim finance director and a principal part-time at Fort Barton, which I still think we need to continue to discuss, especially if we're talking about other positions being brought back. Have those people been offered contracts? And I don't think the
Nope.
contracts have been before
No,
us.
that's an executive session, scheduled for executive session today.
Okay. All right, okay, then I have a little bit more clarity in what I'm looking at.
I think this will help, too.
Yeah.
But we just got it today.
Yeah, I know, and that's the problem, with receiving it literally at this time, so, I guess the real questions I have is how are we proceeding with placing someone in the position of the principal? Oh, did you steal this from me?
I did.
I was like, where did that go? All right. How are we proceeding with putting that part-time principal position in place and the finance director, and that's going to be addressed in executive?
In executive, you have listed administrative contracts, so
Okay. But we did not receive copies of their contracts, did we?
No, we did
no,
not.
there's no contracts. I need some guidance from you on which directions you want to allow me
see.
to pursue.
Okay. All right, thank you. Those are my questions.
Does anyone else have questions? No.
Please. All the names in the column have all been called back. The highlighted are the last set. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mrs. Pavo, anything?
No, nothing.
Okay, and if I could just add, while we're still looking at this document, and this is something, Dr. Sanchioni, I would like us to try to celebrate, if you will. We have a few new employees who are here to replace retired employees, et cetera. And I do want to welcome David Ferrier, Luke Bain, and Linda Leonard to our district as new teachers starting in September.
Yep, a few more to go. We'll get there, though.
Okay.
So all yellows.
Do we have any additional
All yellows
discussion
to
on
bring back.
FY25 budget?
Back.
All of them
Yeah.
are bring back with the yellow at the last.
Layton?
Yes.
Do you have anything?
No.
Thank you. Okay, hearing nothing else, we will move on to new business. We have a vote to approve the food service contract for Chartwells. Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your packet tonight, you have the East Bay's food service management contract with Chartwells. It's a standard contract that, as you know, Chartwells provides food service to the entire state. This has been reviewed by RIGL, been reviewed by the business managers and all the districts that participate in this, and I seek your approval tonight on this contract.
Do I have a motion to approve the Chartwells contract?
Motion to approve the Chartwells contract?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have anything for discussion? I'll go around. Mrs. Polish?
No.
Dr. Larkin?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Pavo?
No.
And Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Sanchioni, the only question I have is on the school year, which I think is the third or fourth page, it would be this one right here.
Yep.
It shows student enrollment and then average daily attendance. Is that accurate, that number for Tiverton?
Well, that would have been taken off of last year's October 1st report.
That's how that goes? Okay. So the number this year obviously will be lower than that? We don't
know.
We don't know yet, but,
It's how we're still registering students, so.
okay, okay, thank you.
I do have a couple of questions. First, in Section 7 in the contract, there is discussion over, and I know I asked this question last year as well, and just can't remember what the answers were, and I'm sure you'll be able to help me with this. This is a collaborative group that enters into this agreement. Number of towns, including Middletown, Barrington, Bristol Warren, Portsmouth, Little Compton, and Tiverton. The aforementioned districts, Middletown, Barrington, Bristol Warren, and Portsmouth, shall receive a surplus of break even. However, Little Compton and Tiverton are noted as being in a deficit. And of course, Tiverton's deficit's going to be larger than Little Compton's. In our case, it's 83,000 and change. My question is, can you explain that, what that really is, and if it impacts our bottom line?
Yeah, it doesn't impact our bottom line. That it would be, part of that is uncollected lunch accounts that obviously get trued up near the end of the school year, and the other part is some equipment that then gets credited back to a capital account that Chartwells keeps for us.
But it should have no impact on our FY '25
correct.
budget. Okay. And then secondly, on item 8 in the contract, there's mention of 180 days. I just want to clarify, are we required to pay for 180 days regardless of whether we are in school?
Only the days that we serve.
Only the days that we serve?
Same with our bus contract.
Okay, okay. That was the only question I had. So if there are no other questions, I'd like to call a vote. All those in favor? None opposed, thank you. Next for approval, we have the SBA Capital Fund Grant. Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the state of Rhode Island put out an opportunity for districts to obtain a grant for Get the Foam Out. And part of that was, we wrote a grant to replace one of our dishwashers, and that was accepted. So you can see the total there, $85,230, that will take care of a brand new dishwasher at the middle school. We're excited to receive this grant. Obviously, that piece of equipment is outdated in its useful life, so I seek your approval on this grant this evening.
Do I have a motion to accept this grant?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Dakotas? Elaine?
No.
Sherry? Deb?
Nope.
Okay. I guess the only question that comes to mind here is, I realize it's grant funding, but any chance we'll get even a double dip into reimbursement from the state for? No? I'll try.
Nice try.
Good try.
I tried. Okay, well, hearing nothing else, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? No? Passes unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, approve high school handbook. Principal Craven.
Hi, members of the committee, Dr. Sanchioni, Mrs. Krager. I'm here tonight to present some changes to Tiverton High School's handbook for 24-25. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to glance through the handbook. Most of the changes, the majority of the changes, are with the attendance policy. And those changes are because the General Assembly passed a new act, the Attendance for Success Act this year, and it requires us to go into a little bit more detail and specifics as to the definition of the school day and how we're going to reduce chronic absenteeism in our schools. If you look at the handbook, you know, we did face an extraordinary amount of students leaving early and coming in late last year. So we made modifications to the handbook to define, like, at what time they should be here for school so they're eligible for athletics, for one, and how often they can be late without there being some type of detention attached to it. With the Attendance for Success Act, it requires that we not only address the dismissals and the truancy and the chronic absenteeism, but it's also, we need to put a plan in place for all of those families. So what does that plan look like? Our attendance team will be part of our school improvement team. We don't know yet because we have to put that in effect in 25, 26. So we'll have this year to kind of roll out some different ideas with our MTSS system and come up with some relevant ways in which we can reach out to families so that students will come to school, and we want them to be here for obvious reasons. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have on the handbook, and then I'm looking for your approval, please.
Okay, so first, may I have a motion to approve
So
the
moved.
high school handbook?
Second.
Second. Okay, now we're open for discussion. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Craven?
No.
Nope.
No?
Do you have any questions?
So, Mrs. Craven,
I know. Wait, I have to say, it hasn't been proofread for grammatical errors. It was just really for substance yet.
Believe
So
it or not-
so I wanted to throw that out there. There might be
believe
some
it or
periods
not, there was
missing, et
no
cetera.
grammar from me today. I may have missed things. I do have a couple comments. A couple of them are really just, as you would say, questions.
Sure.
Page 3, we list Mrs. Krager as the Director of services. She is the assistant superintendent as well, and should be noted as such.
Absolutely, I'll change that.
Okay. The next one is just a question. I was curious. On page 30 of the document, you speak to work permits being available 2 days a week. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, there actually is. So during the course of the week, or even during the summer, we have individuals who come in and make phone calls to the school, like, when can we get the work permit? When are people available? And with summer schedules during, especially now, we want them to know when we will be here to issue those permits. And during the school year, it just reduces the amount of traffic in the main office so that they know on a consistent basis, Monday and Tuesdays, you can come in and we can give you that work permit.
Okay, thank you. On page, I looked at the attendance section closely. Page 31, looking at, I'm just gonna, one of my benefits of my computer at home is I can have 2 screens. Don't have that here. Page 30, we're talking about truancy. And just looking for some clarification. Was it page 30? Or was that the other one? No, that was page 31. I'm asking, should truancy be quantified for the purposes of referring someone to the magistrate? I'm just kind of missing where that would, if I'm a parent, what would my expectation be for my child to be referred to a magistrate or to the office or to any? Is it quantified anywhere in this document? They have to be out X number of days? I know it's 10%.
Yeah, it's 10% of the school year, depending on the number of days you've been in school.
So, for example, through September, if someone has missed 2 days, does that come to 10%?
Yeah, we do take into effect, there are considerations. So when we get the letters from the Department of Education through the RIDE attendance tool, we take those students who have been identified as chronically absent, and we compare it with students who may have been sick, long-term illness, or students who have had any type of issue through our nurses' documents, right? We don't send letters home to those students. So,
Okay.
right, there's a flexibility factor in that. Like, there are reasons why students may miss school, and we certainly don't want to send letters or refer them to truancy if those reasons are legitimate or excusable.
Okay, thank you, that helps.
You're welcome.
And then on page 34, I had a difficult time seeing, in my view at least, I saw contradictions in the language around tardiness,
Okay.
where you reference valid versus invalid, and then in the next paragraph, excused versus unexcused, that there is no such thing. Yet we recognize there's valid versus invalid. And I'm trying to, as someone who's a layperson, understand, if all you're trying to infer is flexibility,
Right.
that's fine, but as a reader, as a parent, can that be inferred?
At page 33, the circumstances that must be validated are outlined. So that's religious observation, injury, health treatment, examination, family emergency, bereavement, judicial requirement, etc. So that's usually the guidelines that we follow as the only quote-unquote unexcused absent that we recognize. In the eyes of RIDE, there's no such thing as an unexcused absent, but we take all of that into consideration.
So in the case of a student who has to get detention for being tardy more than 3 times, you would take into consideration a valid excuse
Always.
and not
Always.
impose that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even in here, and if the weather is not good, we certainly don't want kids rushing to school in conditions that we wouldn't want them to, their safety to be at risk. So We look at all of those factors when
common
we're talking
sense
about.
does
Yeah,
rule the day?
absolutely, it always does.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I know it's hard to write something like that into a policy,
It is,
you know, just
because there's so
trying
many
to understand it.
factors, right?
Of
It's
course.
just- It's never just a one-size-fits-all.
Well, I'm thinking of the kid that has to go for their braces to get tightened
Right.
once a month, you know?
And
it's-
that's
it's-
okay, because that's a medical treatment,
Yeah, yeah,
per se.
okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And then the last one, I promise.
No problem.
I do notice that when it starts on page 34, when a student has accumulated 10 tardies and beyond, the following may occur. I'm very interested to know in what situation you would send the SRO to visit the home for being late for school.
Not many, and that's that multi-tiered system of support. It just would be something that would be documented through our social worker if there's extenuating circumstances where DCYF calls have to be made, but not many. Their role is not to go out to the homes for this purpose. It's more for safety issues or areas of concern that might lead to some type of criminal offense.
Okay.
I happen to know someone who's accumulated quite a bit of tardies, and the SRO never showed up.
Exactly.
He did serve his sentence, and as I harbor a fugitive from justice. My apologies.
No, it's no issue whatsoever. It's just like it's more frequent, right? And that's why that Dunkin' Donuts clause is in there, because they're late to school, but they come in with their lattes and,
I kind of liked that one.
yeah, exactly. I
It's
mean,
gotta be from a
that's not
local
a new policy
establishment, though.
technically. That's been in place for a while, but I don't think it's been very much enforced. But with this new attendance
Unless, of
law
course, they
that
bring
came
you a
down.
coffee. No, just
Right,
kidding.
right. If they have time to do that, they have time to get here on time.
That's true, that's true. Okay, and that was the last of my questions. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
explaining them. And has anyone reconsidered asking anything further? No? Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'd like to take a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay, number 4 under new business. Discuss options for the administrator positions and possible vote. Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have
Your microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The two options or two positions to discuss this evening. I'm going to, in light of the conversation we had about the budget earlier and the potential savings that are currently available to the school committee, I'm going to ask that we hold off on the data manager, and not take any action on that one this evening, so that you have the confidence to know that that position could be funded if in fact you do decide to do so. Regarding the athletic director position, in the last page of the document I just handed out, I provided you an impact of that position as it currently stands. So if you vote to terminate the contract tonight, the impact on the district, and you can see the amount there, it's a little, almost $45,000. That does not also include 13 weeks of unemployment that will be added into that. You can see the salary at the top, and then you can see what the difference is between what we'll have to pay out and potentially what the savings are. Why we want to talk about the options here is I know I speak for Principal Craven and myself. We're looking for options or an understanding from you this evening of where we can go with this. I understand that the elimination of the position was financial. I can share with you that there's not a public school system in Rhode Island that doesn't have an AD. We've been talking to RILL about that. So looking at the salary, what we're going to owe, and know that we need some kind of position. Again, in that email I sent you today, I sort of outlined that this has always been a full-time position. Previous AD taught one class a day, 85% of his time was serving as an AD, and then on top of that, there was a stipend, there was other stipends and so forth, and then our current AD it's a full-time job, and we have a lot of athletic programs, we have a lot of athletes. I think I shared with you at one point that we had over 200 athletes per season, which is a lot of work to do. Here nor there, we've got a vacancy, we've got fall sports rolling up on us really quickly, we got a lot of work to do. So we're looking for guidance from the school committee now about what the options are. Is there a financial, can we create some kind of part salary or stipend from some of the savings off this position, or, and I'll leave the or blank.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes, Mrs. Polish.
Dr. Sanchioni, I asked for the backup to how you're getting to the savings, and I just want to note you have 4 months' salary on here, and I believe the contract says only 3.
Right, so if you terminate the contract tonight, July is basically, we paid him July, and so then, basically, I'm off a week of July, then it'll be August, September, October. So in essence, we'll end up paying 4 months.
Well, we terminated we eliminated the position on June 28th, or whatever it was, 29th.
Yeah, so I'll let Ben weigh in on that, so, but until the contract is terminated, he's still an employee of the district.
That's correct.
Well, that would have been helpful to know that day.
I did mention it during
Okay.
that meeting that night, that day, excuse me.
That we would have had to have taken the action that morning?
That the committee would need to take a separate vote to terminate. We voted on the budget that night, and the question was asked, and then I made the comment that the committee would have to take a subsequent vote to terminate the individuals when you cut them from the budget.
It was my understanding, Mr. Scungio, as Mrs. Farnworth was explaining the budget, that that's in fact what we were doing. She said, we cannot say who is hired or fired. All we have is responsibility over the contract, so the votes were to not fund the contract.
Right. And I guess I would have said then, okay, let's meet Tuesday. And I'm not blaming you, Ben. I think that, I wish that had been more explicit to us. If we just wasted a month of the contract, every penny matters. And, now we're being asked to reinstate things, and I'm having a hard time understanding where the money comes from, because we do not have it.
Well, you gotta remember, that action you took that evening is below the line. Like, we were never counting on savings from this position. So when you made that decision, that kind of went into a pot of money that we weren't counting on. So
My point is that we were trying to balance the budget. If it would have saved us a month of salary, a month of salary, we do rely on the expertise of the district to kind of bring that along, I guess. So, at any rate, so we're paying the position this month. So as of July 23rd, we still only have 3 months.
yeah, and again, I'm going off.
So in a way, yes, we now ran into FY '25, so we paid,
3 weeks.
July 1st to July 23rd.
Right.
The clock ticks today in terms of the 3 months. So, so it's whatever we paid, I don't know, and I would prorate it. It's 23 days in July, not 31.
Yeah, no, I will. I said we're about a week off.
So it's even less than 4 months. It's 3 months and 3 weeks. And that's proportional to all these other things I'm assuming as well. So just to make the point.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, so that was part A. To Dr. Sanchioni, I guess to part B of your question, I think we at least have to go back to offering stipends and see what we get. I mean,
And I agree, but can you give us some, do we use the delta between what we owe and what the salary was for a stipend, or are we going, and this is a lot of work, and I know you've seen that in the job description, it's been a full-time position. We just need some guidance, because.
Is there
Right.
the ability for any other employees to take on some of this work in addition to their current load?
We don't believe so. We're very short-staffed. Phys ed is a graduation requirement. Our classes are already fully staffed. Principal Craven and I looked at that a million different ways.
Is there any capability at either the administration at the middle school or the high school to take on any additional?
again,
I hate to put you on the spot, but if you're asking us, I would like all avenues explored and documented as to why it couldn't work before anyone,
you know, certainly the middle school's a lot less, but the high school, I can't see putting that total burden on an AP that right now supervises, evaluates, does the discipline, does CAF duty, does a million other things that you're going to ask them to do. Take that job description the AD does and ask them to do that when when the previous AD and the current AD are doing that full-time. It's just, and, you know, I don't want to add on to this, but, you know, we added in so many extra responsibilities. You got the fitness center, you got the van, we cut the outside service gentleman that we were going to ask our AD to do a lot of that work. So we're, you know, we're trying to cover a lot of gaps here.
But Peter, we have to stop talking about the value of the employees, not that they're not valuable. It's just that it has been very clear that the town council, primarily, the state, substantially, $1.2 million worth, and ultimately the voters have told us you are doing less with less.
And I'm not talking about the employee, I'm just talking about the work.
No, I know, and I think that's what's not helpful, is to try and recapitulate the value of every employee. Every employee is
Yeah,
helpful. I
that's
don't think there's anybody in the district
Not
who
my
doesn't bring
intention.
value.
I'm just trying to have you understand the workload and what, you know, when I get asked a question, can you put it on the assistant principal? I'm trying to answer that question.
But it goes back to what Jerry said, you know, on the 29th. I mean, who's taking on the load of not having aides? Who's taking on the loads of not having a guidance counselor? Who's taking on the load of not having a specialist?
Well, we've reinstated a lot of those critically needed positions, and thank you for the decisions you made that day. Look, all I'm asking right now is just, Sue and I need some guidance. That's all I'm asking. Like, do you want to throw a number at it? Do you want us to throw a number at it?
Well, okay, so I have,
Madam Chair, may I speak, please?
yes.
Thank you. So as a member of the committee that voted against this, I wanted to rehash where I was coming from that day. And it's sort of like the Fort Barton thing. The reason why I wouldn't vote to close the school was the plan, to me, was too rushed. Some might say short-sighted. Some would say, you don't have a really good redistricting plan. That was my reasoning. And that was also my reason for not cutting this position at the last minute without any direction or
anything else?
anything at all to give the administration to take care of a position that we've had probably since, I don't know, the 70s at some point. Even if it was given out in stipend, we understand. So I wanted to speak on this because athletics does mean a lot to me and my family. And I have had the opportunity to speak with some people in the district about this issue. I guess we call it an issue. And I would say to my fellow peers on the school committee that we do need to give some guidance. And I wanted to offer up my thoughts. And I think that it should be split in a stipend position. And I think that number, for me personally, is probably around $40,000. Whether it's two different people that split it, or it's one person that's going to do it. I don't know how one person would do it all with what's on their plate. But even if it was split between a couple of different people, I'm not sure what the committee is looking at or what's going to be offered or discussed, but you can't just take pennies on the dollar and expect the job to be done correctly. So those are my thoughts, and I'm just one person.
Okay, so before we move any further, and I do apologize to anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to speak yet. You will.
It's okay.
Do I have a motion to reconsider the vote we took on June 29th to eliminate the athletic director position?
That would only be myself, you, or Dr. Larkin.
I'll make the motion for purposes of discussion.
Do I have a second? There is no second. Motion fails. I will then move us on to terminating the
Could we say
administration.
something?
She wanted to say
Yeah,
something.
you know what,
just
Mrs. Pavo, let her speak.
want-
Yep,
Everyone's had an opportunity.
and then I have something else.
Sure.
I agree with Mr. Dakotas. I don't want the position to go away. I feel that we have staff in place that we could work with the current staff and make it a stipended position. I don't know if I like the two, more than one person. We need the position. There is no school district in Rhode Island that doesn't have an athletic director. But we need to find a solution to what we're looking at now. And we should look at our staff. I know PE people are full, everybody's full, But I think we need to look at our current staff and find a way to make this work.
Thank you. Mrs. Polish?
I just wanted to know if Mr. Dakotas wanted to make his recommendation in the form of a motion.
Well, before we go there, I do
Oh.
have a couple of things
Oh,
that I
I'm
would
sorry,
like to
I
add.
didn't know, I'm sorry.
Well, everyone else has had an opportunity. so.
Have yours. Your voice.
I don't think any of us feels that the position of athletic director is unimportant. I think we all agree it is. It's the budgetary constraints that we're living under, in that we simply, because we've laid off so many of the teaching staff, we felt that this was important. With that being said, what I would like to recommend is that the administration come back with some kind of written recommendation on what they would like to propose as an alternative, using existing staff. And if you really feel that you have to bring in new staff, how much you'd be looking to allocate from our budget, how much to allocate for that. So if I could ask you to do that, and unless someone disagrees with me here today, we can take this up again at our next meeting. Dr. Larkin?
Point of order, yeah, so I think we still have to vote to terminate the contract because we didn't.
We haven't gotten to that item on the agenda
Okay,
yet.
okay, we're just talking about it.
Yep.
We're just on 4.
We're still stuck on 4, even though the motion failed.
Okay.
Giving everyone an opportunity to speak is all it is.
Well, then can I ask a question now or later about the breakdown of the finances of the position for the athletic director?
Might as well ask it now.
Okay, so, all right. So so Dr. Sanchioni, you have as the AD direct salary, $112,750, and then I'm assuming what you think what you say is it's gonna cost us to terminate the contract, which is $44,820. That's what those two numbers are supposed to represent?
Minus a week, so.
Minus a week,
Yeah,
okay.
and
All right.
I did some quick calculations.
So then you would say that the net savings is roughly $64,000 or something like that?
Well, you got to do 13 weeks of unemployment.
Well, but also you would also have to include all of the benefits as well in terms of the savings.
I did. Oh, as far as the savings go? Right.
Correct.
Yes.
So if we're paying him out 3 months
Yep.
now, and you've included as the cost of that,
Yep.
all of those things, so you have to actually multiply everything below the 37,583,
By 9.
which comes to about another $21,000, if my math is right, or $22,000. So the actual savings at the top of the salary should be something like $135,000. So now your savings is actually approaching $100,000.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I was showing, in this document, I'm showing you the cost, but
No, I know, but we've missed a significant percentage of the savings as well, though, which I think is important if we're going to kind of take this under consideration. So I just want to make sure I was looking at that the right way. And this is actually, so is all of those letters, acronyms, below the 4-month salary, that's 4 months of benefits or 3 months of benefits?
4.
Some of which we've already committed to because of the 3 weeks that
Right.
have passed, but not all.
Right, so it's not truly 4 weeks, it's 4 months, it's 3 months and 3 weeks.
3.3. sorry.
No, 3.75, I think, actually, but, which, yeah, okay. That was my question.
Okay, we are ready to move on to the next agenda topic.
Okay.
We've gotten too far off here. So for new business, item 5, terminate administrator contracts. I would, well, first of all, I will say that I'm going to ask that we hold off on terminating the data manager contract today. I may lose that, but that will be my ask. But I would like to entertain motions to terminate the athletic director contract first.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
And second, is there any further discussion on the athletic director contract?
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
I think that we need to proceed with terminating the contract because we need the clock needs to start ticking. I would wonder about converting the position to part-time if Mr. Grant would be so inclined to do that.
Or anyone. Or anyone.
Or anyone. But that would potentially save us the, if he is open to a contract negotiation, that may be splitting the difference, so that we don't necessarily have to pay him out 4 months, and we could augment the workforce for organizing the sports with stipends from some of the coaches, if that's where you want to go. But it may be that none of the parties are interested in that. It's just an idea I would consider supporting. But I do think we need to terminate the contract tonight, given the discussion we had previously.
Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of termination of the athletic director contract? All those opposed? Motion passes 4-1. Next up is the data manager contract. Do I have a motion to terminate the data manager contract?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? So I will add my 2 cents. And this is, again, a topic that was brought up before. This is not aimed at an individual ever. It's aimed at the job function, and this group did vote to eliminate the position on June 29th. The lingering concern I have is the fact that we have made cuts in this position in addition to the finance office. Both are similar type functions for the district. They're business-related functions. And of course, right now, we're without a finance director as well. My understanding is that many of the functions of a data manager are mandated by the state, and if we just right out terminate the contract, the district will be forced to figure out how to manage these functions, at least at a minimum level. I also am concerned over the health of the finance office. We recently eliminated the HR payroll position. We're down to, what is it,
Three.
two plus, Christine, in there,
Yeah, as
your
much as-
admin?
yeah.
Right, and I know they're all trying to work together, but I am very concerned about the capabilities of us meeting our obligations for not only data reporting, but for financial reporting. With that said, I'm also concerned that we perhaps don't even have the money to pay, based upon our discussion earlier, and that we're going to have to continue talking about that. My feeling is that, if it's at all possible, that we hold off and convene quickly at this finance subcommittee level to determine the finances and reconvene the school committee in the very near future to reconsider. But that is certainly, that is just my input on this and my opinion. So we have a motion and a second. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
Ms. Farnworth?
Yes.
So I appreciate everything you have said, as I appreciate it for about every position we have eliminated, not just this year, but last year and the year before that and the year before that and the year before that. So it's not about the need for the expertise and the good services of our employees. It's about what we are being told again, and bears repeating. By the town council, you must do less with less. By the state, you must substantially do less with less. By the voters, you must do less with less. So less with less means less with less. So I have, I guess, something of a question of point of order, which is, since we did not vote to eliminate the data manager, or to terminate the data manager contract on the 29th, as we did not vote to terminate the athletic director's contract, but we did vote to eliminate that position. If we do not vote to terminate the contract, we've created a conflict of rules. And so maybe this is or maybe it's a conflict of rules. I'm going to defer to Mr. Scungio. I would think we are now compelled to revisit this issue because we have not budgeted it at our next meeting until we either restate the position through the budget process or we eventually vote to eliminate the data manager. Am I correct in that?
Yes, the district will incur a continuing liability if we have that employee on the payroll going forward. So that will diminish the amount of the savings,
Right.
if ultimately you decide.
Well, it's de facto putting us into deficit spending eventually.
Well, it depends whether or not there's other play and other lines in the budget, but potentially, yes.
Well, we're by law compelled to present a balanced budget to, I believe, RIDE.
To the town council.
Okay, whoever it is, whatever August body it is, you can pick which one is more August. I've got my opinions. But since we are compelled to present a balanced budget, we will be in violation of that if we do not terminate the contract, and yet we have balanced the budget by eliminating the position.
You'd have to make up that expenditure in another line item to create a balanced budget.
Okay, granted, I see that
Yep.
we can do that, but we didn't, and we're already $200,000 over our recall as far as we understand it right at the moment. And our finance committee is, we still have to present a balanced budget. And if we do not terminate this contract, and
Well,
if
you
we do
have.
not.
You voted on a budget that's balanced. The
But
question is
It
then.
was balanced by eliminating the position.
The question then is whether or not you can live within that bottom line figure, and what you do with it month to month determines whether or not you'll have a deficit at the end.
Well, I think it betrays an intention to not balance the budget if we say we are balancing the budget by eliminating this position, but then we don't terminate the contract. You may recall my chaos theory of not laying anybody off and just playing until the money runs out.
I can't do it.
If I may, Dr. Larkin, maybe
Yeah.
shed some light on this. So that evening when you made some cuts that we weren't planning on, they were all below the line. You had already balanced the budget based upon the 33 people we laid off, all the expense accounts we had laid off, the grant, all the other things that took place. So when you did that, we were already balanced. And so when we made our callbacks, we based it upon the revenue that, like, all of a sudden we had. And I understand we need to discuss this with the Finance Subcommittee, but at this time, there was more revenue.
I'm right.
We didn't call back all the positions, and we left revenue available.
So, Dr. Larkin, we can sit here and argue about it all night. Are we going to, we have a motion do we have a motion to eliminate the position? And do we have a second?
But I guess
Well, we
I'm,
can discuss it.
yeah, my question, I think, is maybe still left unanswered then. Are we compelled to revisit the issue in order to balance the budget? We're compelled to present a balanced budget. And,
We have adopted a budget of 35 million in whatever the
right, but
exact
if we
number is.
don't terminate this contract, then it's no longer balanced.
In your
No,
opinion?
that's not the case. That is not the case. We appropriated close to 1.7 million from our fund balance to add to the appropriation that the town council gave us, to give us that 35 million. We have yet to see a line item budget from the administration, which we will be forthcoming. And our understanding is by eliminating these positions, that fits into the salary budget that we anticipate to be the case. We do have some remaining questions as to the callbacks, and that is why I am recommending that we look at it in much more depth at a line item in a finance subcommittee, to be followed by another discussion with this committee. Has nothing to do with the termination of the contracts, though. And if that is the pleasure of the committee, then that's what should happen.
I will just say in support of Dr. Larkin, we had 1.991937 in position reductions, which included the reduction of this position. So if you're saying that's not valid anymore and there's a new budget to be had or there's new position reductions, then that's fine, but that's not a discussion we have had to date. That is not something we've been updated on today.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I agree. Does anyone else have any comments?
yes.
I'm getting close.
Huh?
Go ahead.
So I would be willing to support not terminating the contract tonight, and I'm going to ask for a roll call vote so that I can know where the majority is, because I want to bring this back, and I want to be in the majority. I don't know if you'll allow me that from a parliamentary point of view. But I think that if we're going to reinstitute or maintain this position, and again, I am not arguing with the validity of it or the need for it, then I think we have to revisit the issue of the part-time principal at Fort Barton. Because, again, we are compelled to present a balanced budget. So,
I have a question for Mr. Scungio. Would it be appropriate, I know we have a motion in a second, would it be appropriate for me to ask to have that, that motion reconsidered and table the termination of this contract for 1 week or whatever time it takes for us to get our arms around this?
I made the motion, I'm happy to withdraw it.
That was going to be my suggestion.
I withdraw the motion.
I would still like to make a motion to eliminate the contract. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor of eliminating the data manager contract, raise your hand. All those opposed? You want to be in the majority?
That's what I said.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. Consider and schedule future school committee meetings. We have currently on our schedule for regular meetings, August 14th and August 27th. Those are regular Tuesday night meetings.
If I may, Madam Chair, the 14th is a Wednesday.
14th is a Wednesday. We must have agreed to that at some point.
I had requested it. I was out of town. It's your prerogative.
Okay, so it's not a Tuesday, everyone, it's a Wednesday. Put it on your calendars. And then August...
I'm out of town.
You're out of town, okay. August 27th? Okay. And
Yeah.
again, I will be speaking with you, Dr. Sanchioni and Mrs. Polish, to schedule a finance subcommittee ASAP, with the possibility of reconvening of the school committee if we need to for financial discussion.
I would like to ask for a few things on that August meeting, which we certainly can go over in in Finance Subcommittee, but I would like to see, or at least get an update on budget to actual for FY '24, which was this ended June. I would like, you already mentioned, I would like the detailed budget. I would like to also get an update on enrollment sizes for classes by school, by grade for the elementaries, and simply by school for middle school and high school. I will put that in writing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a public statement before I make a motion to move into executive session. Any individual being discussed in executive session has been given advance notice and an opportunity to have such discussion in open session. So at this time, I would like to vote on a motion to enter executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A for superintendent evaluations goals, number 1, and number 2, administrative contracts.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Mrs. Polish?
Yes.
Dr. Larkin?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mrs. Hagan?
Yes.
Mr. Fotis?
Yes.
We are now in executive session. Thank you.